I'm Ashley Waxman. Today is June 6, 2024. It is day 244 of the October 7th war. This is the daily briefing of the Israeli Citizen Spokespersons Office. We are live on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. I invite you to submit questions through whichever live stream you are watching, and I will answer some of them at the end. It has been an intense 24 hours. At around 4 a.m. last night, Hamas terrorists from Rafah attempted to infiltrate Israel. They were spotted on cameras, and IDF soldiers were dispatched in order to stop them. The terrorists opened fire on the IDF soldiers, who returned fire and eliminated the threat. News just came out about an hour ago that an IDF soldier, Sergeant Major Zaid Mazarib, was killed in the exchange of fire. Mazarib was an Israeli Bedouin, a Muslim Arab in the IDF, proudly serving his country. He will be remembered as a hero of Israel. The terrorists were only a distance of a few football fields away from the Israeli border. The threat from Hamas remains very real. The Hamas rapist regime continues to fight. Hamas continues to attack Israelis, and it continues to hold Israeli hostages in its terror dungeons, Agam, my cousin, being one of them. Hamas has so far refused to accept an Israeli proposal that would see some of the hostages released. As long as the Hamas rapist regime refuses to release hostages, the IDF will continue its operations in Gaza. Yesterday, the IDF announced that it destroyed a massive Hamas tunnel that went from Rafah to the border with Egypt. The tunnel, like many others in the area, likely went into Egypt. It was more than a mile long and had many entrance points. In the tunnel, the IDF found blast doors, anti-tank missiles, AK-47s, explosives, and more. The tunnel was a short distance from Kerem Shalom border crossing with Israel. This is the border crossing through which most of the humanitarian aid trucks enter Gaza. Hamas has attacked this crossing repeatedly in the past because it knows that if it can force the crossing to close and stop the flow of the aid into Gaza, Israel will be blamed. Hamas's tunnels are its lifeline. It is vital for Israel's security that the IDF finds and destroys Hamas's tunnels under the city of Rafah so that Hamas cannot smuggle additional weapons into Gaza or try to take hostages out of Gaza. Last night, in a precision strike, the IDF targeted a Hamas base that was inside an UNRWA school in central Gaza. This is the second Hamas compound in an UNRWA school that the IDF has struck this week. Around 20 to 30 terrorists were there, including some who participated in the October 7th massacre. The terrorists were using the UNRWA school as a base of operations. They were hiding in classrooms and planning more attacks from the school. The UNRWA school that Hamas used as a base was funded by UNRWA's donors. UNRWA's biggest donors are the United States, Germany, the European Union, France, Sweden, Japan, and Norway. International funding to UNRWA is a direct subsidy to Hamas's army of terror. UNRWA is a Hamas front. UNRWA employees in Gaza are not random UN workers from around the world. UNRWA employees in Gaza are Gazans. They are locals who wear blue UN vests. Who do you think the locals are? Let's not play dumb. Hamas determines where Gazans can and can't work. Hamas spent many years infiltrating UNRWA, and it has its own people on the UNRWA payroll. The Commissioner General of UNRWA, Felipe Lazarani, cannot pretend that he does not know how UNRWA functions in Gaza. There was a massive Hamas server farm under UNRWA's headquarters in Gaza City. The server farm was taking electricity from UNRWA's headquarters. I would love to find out if anyone at UNRWA saw the electricity bill and wondered, why was it so high? Or if they knew that their job was to look the other way as Hamas literally operates from under its feet. Let me remind you, UNRWA employees participated in the October 7th massacre. They committed atrocities. They took hostages. They bragged about it. It should not surprise anyone that UNRWA remains a Hamas front and an obstacle to peace. Yesterday, Hezbollah sent suicide drones into Israel that killed an IDF reservist and wounded 10 others. Hezbollah has been attacking Israel since October 8th, with rockets, anti-tank missiles, and suicide drones. These attacks have sparked huge fires in northern Israel. 60,000 Israelis have been displaced from their homes because of Hezbollah's ongoing attacks. A sovereign state, Israel, is being attacked from a neighboring sovereign state, Lebanon. This is a clear violation of international law. In 2006, following the Second Lebanon War, the UN Security Council passed Resolution 1701, which called on the government of Lebanon to exercise its full sovereignty in southern Lebanon and not allow Hezbollah to have a separate army that attacks Israel. Since that time, the government of Lebanon has done nothing to stop Hezbollah. In fact, today, Hezbollah is part of the government of Lebanon. Hezbollah is a state within a state. I'm still waiting to hear from the people who marched in the streets of world capitals demanding that Israel cease fire in Gaza. Why are they not marching to demand that Hezbollah stops attacking Israel? Israel expects that everyone, every world leader, will speak up every day against Hezbollah's attacks and demand that it back off from the border before Israel is forced into a major war to push it away, before anti-Israel, anti-Semites will start accusing Israel of ridiculous claims such as genocide or occupation of Lebanon. Hezbollah must back off, or Israel will force it to back off. I will now take some questions from people watching online. Please submit questions through the live stream.
This question came in advance on your Instagram stories. Why is Israel attacking in Rafah and endangering all the Gaza civilians after telling them to go to Rafah?
Well, it's important to note that, as we mentioned before, Hamas is operating from Rafah. How is Israel supposed to eliminate Hamas without entering Rafah? They are literally trying to infiltrate Israel from Rafah. There are tunnels being found under Rafah. They are storing their weapons in Rafah. There has been rocket fire just these past few weeks from Rafah, from within the civilian safe zones. And it's important to mention also that over 1 million Palestinians have been evacuated from Rafah. Rafah is Hamas's lifeline. The tunnels between Egypt and Rafah, this is Hamas's lifeline. There are still at least 3 battalions of Hamas terrorists in Rafah. Israel cannot win its war against Hamas without going into Rafah.
Multiple people on the Instagram Live have asked about Egypt. What does Egypt say about these tunnels? What is Egypt's role in this whole situation?
I mean, Egypt itself destroyed tunnels that were going from Gaza into Egypt just a few years ago. Egypt knows what would happen if the Palestinians would enter Egypt through those tunnels. They have a responsibility. They know they also are not allowing Palestinian refugees to enter Egypt to keep them safe. Egypt is playing a double-sided position right now. On the one hand, it's keeping quiet. On the other hand, it's not actually allowing aid to go in through Rafah. In fact, it's diverting it to the Israeli crossings, and that's where it is entering Rafah. So the world should be very, very clear on what it should demand from Egypt as well. It's important for people to understand, if you don't know the map, open the map of Gaza and see where Rafah is strategically placed. There is a border with Egypt as well, not only with Israel. Egypt has a responsibility in this war as well.
Do you have any updates on what's happening in the West Bank? Is Hamas present in the West Bank?
So I've been seeing many people argue online about, well, what about the West Bank? What about Israel's ongoing operations in the West Bank? Hamas is not in the West Bank. This is a ridiculous claim, and this is just pure ignorance for anyone saying that. It's true, Hamas is not the official governing body in the West Bank. For that, we have the Palestinian Authority with its pay-for-slay policy. But there are thousands of Hamas-affiliated terrorists in the West Bank, and therefore Israel must go in and remove the threat of terrorists. And these threats are not simply threats. We have countless terrorist attacks on Israelis coming out of the West Bank, and many of them, luckily, are stopped. And so it doesn't make your local news. And even the ones that are not stopped probably are not making your local news. So don't be fooled. We are fighting a war on the West Bank front as well.
Our last question is from Instagram stories. Did the percentage of Aliyah applications increase significantly since the war started?
So I don't have the official statistics or the numbers, but what I can say is that we feel the sense of Jewish pride rising amongst the diaspora. I have been reached out to many, many times when speaking abroad of people, young people interested in coming, making Aliyah, joining the IDF. And I can tell you from my own personal story, I decided to make Aliyah during the Second Lebanon War. So of course, when Israel feels threatened, Jews around the world feel threatened. And I'm sure we're going to see a rise in Aliyah in the following year. That's all we have time for today. Thank you very much. I invite you to follow on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, of course. And we will see you tomorrow, 3 o'clock Israel time, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a good day.